And welcome to our new module. In this module, we're going to be learning all about multiplying and dividing fractions. And we're going to start out by learning that fractions are really just division after all. And we're going to be learning about this relationship between fractions and division. So imagine that 2 cookies were shared equally among 2 friends. And you would want to know how much would each friend get. Well, you're probably thinking, Ms. Shames, this is a really easy problem, which it is, but it's important to help us understand the concept of division. So imagine I have 2 cookies and we want to know how much each friend would get. So this cookie would go to this friend and this cookie would go to this friend. So each friend would get 1 cookie. Now I want to write an equation that matches the story. Well, I started out with 2 cookies. I divided them among 2 friends. And I found that I got 1 in each group, or each friend ended up with 1 cookie. So that's the equation that matches the story. 2 divided by 2 equals 1. Let's see what happens though when we have 1 cookie. So if we wanted to share 1 cookie among 2 friends, what would happen? Well, we'd have to break this cookie apart. They would have to split it. And then each friend would get half of the cookie. And they each end up with a half. I'm drawing my halves here. And I'll even write that they each got 1/2 of the cookie. So what equation matches the story? Well, I just had 1 cookie. I divided it among 2 friends, and they each got 1/2. I want you to stop and think about, what do you notice about the quotient in this equation? The quotient is the answer in the division problem. What do you notice? Well, I notice that it's a fraction, and I notice that the numerator is actually the dividend, and the denominator is the divisor. So the numbers in the fraction come from the numbers in the equation. How much would each friend get? Each friend would get 1/2. So one big difference I noticed between this equation and the last equation is that in this scenario, my quotient was a whole number, but in this scenario, my quotient is a fraction. So let's think more about why. Well, like I said, fractions are really just division after all. So in this case, my 1/2 means that I started with 1 cookie and I split it into 2 parts. And that's what that 1/2 means. So we can really think of a fraction line as a division sign. A fraction line is a division sign. 1/2 means 1 divided by 2. I had 1 cookie and I divided it into half. 1 divided by 2. Let's get a little more practice with this. Say I want to find out 1 divided by 3, and I want to show my answer as a fraction. Well, I can imagine I have 1 whole. It could be a cookie, it could be something else. If I have 1 whole, and I split it into 3 parts. Well, how much would each part be? I would get 1/3. So 1 divided by 3 is really 1/3. And if I saw 1/3 all on its own, I could think of it as 1. A fraction line is a division sign, so 1 divided by 3. 1 whole split into 3 parts gives me 1/3. So 1 divided by 3, to answer this equation, is 1/3 if I wanted to write my answer as a fraction. Let's get a little more practice. Here I'm actually going to show you two different strategies for dividing 3 divided by 2. So here I have 3 wholes, and I want to split them into 2 groups. I used bags to show my group. Well, one strategy could be that I could divide the whole numbers, and then I'll partition, which means break apart the remainder. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to take this one whole, cross it out, I'll bring it into this group. Here's my one whole here. I'm going to take this whole, split it into this group. Remember, I want to divide it equally. And now I only have one left, so I can't put one more whole into each of these groups. So I'm actually going to break apart this whole and put 1 into this group. But now I have a half, right? I'm going to put half into this group because I had to split this in half. And I'm going to take my other half and put it in this group. So all together in each group, I have 1 whole and 1 half. So 3 divided by 2 is 1 and 1 half. If I had written, and I'm going to make a connection with some things we had been learning in the last unit, if I had written 3 divided by 2 as a fraction, I could write that as 3 over 2. And then a lot of you would notice right away that this is an improper fraction, or a fraction greater than 1. And I can rewrite this fraction greater than 1 as a mixed number. And I would think 2 goes into 3 one time, and there's a remainder of 1, so it becomes 1 half. So I'm really just dividing 3 divided by 2 to get 1 and 1 half. Let me show you the other strategy. So instead of dividing the whole numbers and then partitioning the remainder, this time I'm going to partition each whole from the get-go. So if I want to do 3 divided by 2, I'm going to split each of these into 2 parts. Split that in 2, split this in 2, split this in 2. And now I'm going to divide up my halves. First I can think I have 6 halves. And I'm going to split them up. So this half goes here. This half goes here. I'm trying to draw them small to show that they're a half. This half goes in this group. This half goes in this group. This half goes in this group. And this half goes in this group. And I can see that in each group, I have 3 halves. 3 halves. 3 halves in this group and 3 halves in this group. So I can write 3 divided by 2 as 3 halves. Or I could write that as a mixed number. 1 and 1 half. Because I know 2 goes into 3 one time. There's a remainder of 1, so it's 1 and 1 half. So these are 2 different strategies you could use. One is I can divide the whole numbers, then split up my remainder and divide the remainder. Or I could, if I know that I'm doing 3 divided by 2, I could take each of the 3 wholes, divide them into 2 parts, and then divide, and then split them up. So you can use either strategy. This time, I think I'm going to try to do it without a drawing. I'm going to solve it first, and then I'll use a drawing to reinforce what I was thinking. So we've learned so far that if I'm doing two whole number, like dividing a whole number by a whole number, I can write my answer as a fraction. So 5 divided by 3 would really be 5 over 3, or 5/3, because a fraction line is a division sign. So this means 5 divided by 3, 5/3. I can write that as a mixed number, so I know that 3 goes into 5 one time. There's a remainder of 2, so it'd be 1 2/3. Let me draw a quick picture to show my thinking. So I'm going to draw 5 holes. And I'm going to draw 3 groups that I want to divide them into. And I think I'm going to use the first strategy where I divide the holes and then partition the remainder. So I'm going to take this hole, put it in this group, this hole, put it in this group, this hole, put it in this group. And now I have 2 holes left over. So I'm going to have to split each of them into thirds and then divide, then split them into the groups. Let me draw what I have so far. So far in each group, I put 1 hole in there and then 1/3. I'm going to just draw that real small. 1 hole and 1/3. 1 hole and 1/3. And now let's divide the last set of thirds. And I put another third in each group. So I can see in each group, I ended up with 1 hole and 2/3. 1 hole and 2/3. 1 hole and 2/3, which is the same as 5/3. So 5 divided by 3 is 5/3, or 1 2/3. All right, you guys, good luck with your understanding of fractions as division, and I can't wait to see your work in Desmos.